Let the word go forth.
Fool me once.
Are you fired up?
I'm not a crook.
Are you ready to go?
Shame on you.
It's Abe Lincoln's Top Hat, hosted by Ben Kissel.
Yeah.
Fool me, we can't get fooled again.
All right, welcome to the show, everyone. I am Ben Kissel. I'm staring at Marcus Parks.
Hey, Ben.
What's up, Marcus?
Oh, not a whole lot, man.
All right, we got a lot to get to. We're going to talk about the Ossoff-Handel election in Georgia 6, in the 6th Congressional District in Georgia. Of course, they are replacing Tom Price, who is now working with the Trump administration. Also, we're going to talk briefly about the horrific decision in Minneapolis, Minnesota, regarding Philando Castile. Geronimo Yanez, he was the officer who shot Castile in cold blood, was found not guilty on all charges, and it's atrocious and sad. And this would be a great opportunity for the NRA to step up and help a young African-American man who played by the rules. He had a conceal and carry license. He told the officer he was carrying a gun, and the officer, because of perhaps ingrained prejudice or whatever it might have been, stress of the job, had a completely flippant response. And unfortunately, when you're a police officer and you have a flippant response, an innocent person ends up dead. The officer said that he believed his life might be in danger because Castile smelled like marijuana, and then he made the assumption that he was smoking marijuana in front of his daughter, which then led to the assumption that if he smoked marijuana in front of his daughter, he might shoot a cop. Jesus. I mean, this is straight out of reefer madness. We've learned nothing from the insane anti-marijuana rhetoric of the past.
Yeah.
So
it's like that officer has never had a beer around his kid.
Exactly. I mean, it's absolutely it's horrific what happened, and people are completely right to be upset. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the Alex Jones Megyn Kelly interview.
Oof.
Yeah, you know, and what happened in North Korea involving Otto Warmbier, another tragedy. But let's start first in Georgia. Of course, this was sort of this is the Democrats. They thought this could be a massive referendum on the Trump administration. They are now 0 for 4 when it comes to filling seats that have been vacated from individuals or by individuals who then went to work for the Trump administration. This race was with a fellow Ossoff and John Ossoff and Karen Handel, the Republican, the Democrat being John Ossoff. The race was not nearly as close as a lot of people hoped it would be. It was roughly 6 points. And this is a very interesting district because Mitt Romney won the congressional 6th district in Georgia by 22 points. However, Donald Trump only won this district by 1.5 points. So that's why the Democrats thought this could be a great opportunity to seize on the anti-Trump movement, the resistance movement. However, this proved to be a fatal flaw in choosing Ossoff, a man who lives outside the district with no experience of actually running for office or holding office. However, he did work on the Hill for a couple of years.
I just don't see why the Democrats thought that choosing someone outside of the district would be a good idea. And I don't know why they thought that choosing someone outside of the district who hadn't ever held office before was a good idea. The reason why Trump won without holding any sort of office whatsoever was because people knew him. He was a known quantity. No one in that Georgia district knew who John Ossoff was.
And no one in that Georgia district, well, obviously not no one in that Georgia district, but many people in that Georgia district knew Donald Trump and didn't like him. Hillary Clinton, again, did fairly well there in 2016. So this was really a blow to the resistance movement. And I think they're understanding now that you have a John Ossoff-like candidate who really ran a moderate to centrist campaign. He was more of an establishment choice. A lot of people now who find themselves to be more of the left of the mainstream Democratic political thinking are proving or taking this as evidence that their positions would have succeeded or would have at least done better when it comes to their political philosophies. More your Bernie Sanders supporters, your more grassroots individuals, as opposed to John Ossoff, who really did represent the establishment in a lot of ways, the Democratic establishment. And if you had a chance to listen to John Ossoff's speak, he sounded exactly like Barack Obama.
Yeah.
It was really it was a Teddy Ruxpin situation. He was just sort of like regurgitating the exact same tone and a lot of the same verbiage as Barack Obama used. So he might have been a fatally flawed candidate from the beginning, as Marcus just said, not coming from the district, not living in the district, already having an uphill battle ahead of you, really difficult to overcome. Despite the fact that he got $23 million, the vast majority of that coming from outside the state, or much of that coming from outside the state, although he did get more small donations, more of a grassroots campaign, as opposed to Handel, who got $22 million for her campaign, mostly from big donors and super PACs. So you did have the difference of fundraising. But other than that, this election sort of proved to be a validation to the Republican Party that Donald Trump, despite many of the issues that they have within the party, is still not going to be enough of a fire rod to get Republicans out of office. So 2018, it's right around the corner. The Democratic Party has a lot of thinking to do, and they better figure it out fairly quickly.
The Democratic Party just needs to learn their own lessons. They just need to learn the lessons of not just Hillary and now John Ossoff. They've learned the lesson twice that people don't want establishment Democrats, that people don't want establishment politicians, specifically their establishment politicians. They don't want the anointed ones. They don't want the Democrats to choose their candidates for them. They want to be able to choose their candidates. They want to be able to have the people that they want in office. And I don't think the Democrats have gotten that through their heads yet. And who knows if they're ever going to get that through their heads.
It seems like it's more difficult for them to understand because they have all of the metrics, they have the data, they have the intelligent minds working on these campaigns. And one of the great ironies of intelligence, when you're smarter than the common person, it doesn't necessarily benefit you in politics. The common person is quite influential in the political process, and if you can't relate to them, you're going to find yourself sitting at home and not in D.C.
I mean, this reminds me of an old Simpsons episode where Principal Skinner is trying to look for Bart, and he goes to the 4-H club because that's where all the kids hang out, and the 4-H club is abandoned. And Skinner says, "Am I so out of touch?" No. It's the children who are wrong.
I agree.
and that's how the Democratic Party is operating right now.
It's like the children.
It's the children who are wrong.
I got to give some props to this fella. I've been following him for a little while, only about a couple of days, really. He's at Iron Stash on Twitter. Talk about grassroots Democrat. His name is Randy Bryce. He's a Democrat for Wisconsin, the 1st District. Father, Army veteran, iron worker, cancer survivor. Wisconsin forever. Most tweets mine. Tweets from campaign signed RBFC. Check him out on Twitter at Iron Stash. He is a hoot of a guy. And he's a regular dude. And you get the feeling he's a regular man, or at least he portrays being a regular person. The Democrats have to go more Randy Bryce than John Ossoff if they really want to get that grassroots coalition that is so desperately needed for them to start taking over the House and the Senate. I mean, they have lost thousands of seats, 1,000 seats across the country. It's one thing. I thought the duopoly of power was a problem in this country. And again, now we have a monopoly of power with the Republicans. And it is a waking nightmare for a lot of Americans who just feel as if there is no viable choice fighting for them in Washington, D.C. And we're seeing that now with the Republicans who have promised to put forward a health care bill. We have no idea what's in it. We know it's going to be different from the health care bill that passed the House, which I still don't firmly understand how you can pass a bill in the House, completely change it, consider it the same bill, and then attempt to pass it in the Senate. However, the Republicans are going to be doing that behind closed doors. And the Democrats, have promised to fight it tooth and nail. They're going to obstruct on every turn. They did a talkathon this week where they had a supposed open debate, but it was not an open debate. Everyone is just trying to get their sound bites out there. The American people, again, it's the charade masquerading as transparency. It's nothing but theatrical nonsense, and we learn absolutely nothing. So if you're a Republican, the Democrats have promised they're going to obstruct at every turn. The Republicans say, then we'll go and do it behind closed doors. And then the Democrats promised to obstruct it all, for any time possible. The American people, again, are just left in the middle with our hands up, looking like a bunch of jerk-offs, just on our knees, wondering what the hell we're going to get next. And it's not going to be anything good. And the insurance companies, of course, they're going to get their money.
And I think that's who's going to benefit the most from this. Again,
of course.
And it wasn't like the insurance companies didn't benefit from Obamacare, because they did. They benefited more than anyone.
$8 billion, absolutely. They crushed it.
They benefited more than anyone, and now they're going to benefit again. That's what it all comes down to.
The insurance companies wrote the damn thing. They write it. They write the legislation. They give it to the senators or the members of the House. They sign it, and it becomes a bill. This whole thing is completely corrupt. I want to thank Bree. She sent a shirt in from Wisconsin. It says "Drink Wisconsinably," which is my favorite shirt of all time. This is better than it's not a beer belly. It's a full tank for a sex machine. This is better than that.
Drink Wisconsinably.
Drink Wisconsinably. So thank you, Bree,
yes, and thank you very much for sending me dirt from Ed Gein's grave.
Wow,
a badger skull, and actually a copy of Weird Tales that has the full Ed Gein story, which is a comic book that I've wanted for many years now. So thank you very much, Bree. You're the sweetest.
If a skull could smile, Ed Gein's would be right now. He's exactly where he always wanted to be, just bones in a graveyard. He's living his dream. The little flyer that came with it, or the what do you call
tag?
This? Tag. Yeah, the tag came with it. It has a great little quote. It says, "This is Wisconsin, proud home of the greatest drinking culture this fine nation has ever known. From church festivals and ice shanties to tailgates and taverns, no other state pours it as liberally or does it as multi-generationally as we do." I love multi-generationally. It's not a family problem of alcoholism. It's a multi-generational tradition.
It's a good family time.
It is. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Bree. This is a great t-shirt, and that was a wonderful gift that you sent. So we appreciate that wholeheartedly. So that's what happened in Georgia 6. Much ado about nothing in a lot of ways. I really was hoping it would be closer, but if you do look and you want to go back and what was the change when it came to the polling data, Ossoff was up by around 7 percentage points until the shooting of Steve Scalise and the 4 other individuals. That went down. Then they ran a very controversial ad. Marcus, did you get a chance to see that ad?
No.
If you Google perhaps we could actually play it if you want to. It is a Jon Ossoff, anti-Jon Ossoff ad attaching him to the Steve Scalise shootings. It's extremely hyperbolic, extremely intense. A super PAC, which was denounced by the Handle campaign in full disclosure, although, they were not that upset with it. That's the thing with these super PACs. The campaigns just have to be like, why, I can't believe they'd run such a thing on my behalf. But it was a really aggressive ad.
Is this an extremist ad against Jon Ossoff?
Sure, it could be. So you got it, Marcus?
I actually have 2.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's hear the first one. This is the one that you were talking about.
Okay.
Now the unhinged left is endorsing and applauding shooting Republicans. When will it stop? It won't if Jon Ossoff wins on Tuesday, because the same unhinged leftists cheering last week's shooting are all backing Jon Ossoff. And if he wins, they win. Stop them. Stop them now. Stop Jon Ossoff. Stop Nancy Pelosi. Vote Karen Handel for Congress. Vote Principled Leadership Project PAC paid for this ad and is solely responsible for its content.
So that was the strategy going in with the Republicans. Take Ossoff, attach him to Pelosi. Again, Ossoff being a establishment Democratic candidate sort of allows those two magnets to stick, as opposed to somebody, maybe if they were coming a little bit more from the union left or whatever, perhaps that would have been too much of a negative and a positive, and you wouldn't be able to have the magnetism between Pelosi and Ossoff. Also, again, that attack on Scalise, you do wonder if people saw that and said, well, you know what? I was sniffing around the Democrats, but if they're going to be pulling off those kinds of activities, I'm going with the Republican. And of course, that's totally insane. It was that man who shot up, I'm forgetting the name of the guy now. I don't even want to remember his name, quite frankly. We'll call him Plimpleton. And so when Plimpleton shot up, the congressional baseball practice, they were practicing for a charity game. It did nothing but help the Republicans. And that's why the chief strategist for Karen Handel, as soon as that attack happened, again, looking at life through a political prism, said that we will win.
Yeah.
As soon as he saw what happened, what transpired in that horrific day with that mass shooting that should never happen, he said, we're going to win. That's going to benefit us greatly. And sure enough, I'm sure that played some role in Ossoff not being able to get even close to handle at the end of the day.
This is the other ad that they ran.
Liberal extremists will stop at nothing to push their radical agenda. Now they're turning their attention to Georgia and demanding that you vote for Jon Ossoff for Congress. Jon Ossoff is one of them. Ossoff will vote with Nancy Pelosi for more spending, bigger government, and a weaker military. Don't let them hijack our congressional seat. Stop Ossoff now. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And by the way, they also showed a picture of Michael Moore and all that.
Oh, good.
Get him in there.
You know, I mean, the left does have a problem with branding. I mean, the celebrities, the Alyssa Milanos of the world, and I have no problem with Alyssa Milano. But once again, we're just seeing it doesn't help.
No.
In grassroots campaigns in the middle of the country, if you get Lena Dunham's support, it's not going to get you votes. It's just not going to work. It might be a negative. And so but it's tough because I'm not going to sit here and tell these people not to be politically active. They're citizens of the United States, and if they want to support Jon Ossoff, please feel free. But you just get the feeling time and time again, the Democrats are running these platforms with celebrity influence, and it doesn't seem like it's being effective whatsoever.
And the violent rhetoric that is, I mean, just anything like talking about violence towards the president or Republicans or anything like that, it's fucking stupid. Like it is, they have every right to say it. Of course they have every right to say it, but it is stupid. It's a dumb thing to say. It's a dumb thing to do, and it only makes them look bad.
Well,
it's the wrong way to do it.
I do have to defend. So now flipping gears a little bit, we don't want to dump too hard here on the Democrats. They did make some mistakes, and I would again like to see them be a viable party, and hopefully they can figure some things out in 2018. We have the right going absolutely insane when it comes to people shutting down a performance of Shakespeare in the Park this past weekend. Shakespeare is officially as controversial in 2017 as he was when he was alive, and I don't even understand how that's humanly possible. Of course, we're talking about the performance of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is played by somebody who sort of represents Donald Trump.
Yeah, this is different from what I was talking about.
Oh, no, I know what you're
Caesar.
saying.
Yeah,
of course. But of course, this is not a new phenomenon either, the Julius Caesar thing. They did it with Hillary Clinton in 2015. Julius Caesar was portrayed sort of in the vein of Hillary, and I believe it was 2012 when they did the exact same play where Barack Obama sort of held the mantle and was sort of portrayed as Julius Caesar. Of course, the great irony about this entire play is when they kill Julius Caesar, they realize what a horrible mistake that was because it just creates a power vacuum and it destabilizes the entire country, and everyone regrets the murder.
Yeah.
That's
supposed to be the point of Julius Caesar.
That's the whole point, is that when you kill the person at the top, there's just going to be another scoundrel taking the damn spot.
Yeah.
So these two protesters, I'm not sure if they were paid. One of the great ironies about the right currently is that they are actively paying protesters. There's a fellow, his name is Mike Cernovich. I only have to mention his name because now he's aligned himself with Alex Jones. I've met Mike a couple of times when he went to do Red Eye. As a matter of fact, it was extremely controversial, and he is, he's a guy attempting to create a narrative that fits his worldview and helps him monetarily. At the end of the day, that's all these people are doing. He is actively paying protesters. He offered $1,000 for anyone to go behind a CNN reporter and say CNN is ISIS. He is actively paying protesters to go and disrupt these plays such as Julius Caesar. And the great irony is, calling CNN ISIS or shutting down an artistic event, that's what ISIS did. They shut down the media and they shut down art.
Yeah.
So it's just the irony. The man who interrupted the Julius Caesar play, he called everybody Goebbels.
Yeah,
You're all Goebbels.
Yeah, Goebbels would be proud. Goebbels would be proud.
Am I mistaken? Didn't the Nazis stop art? Isn't that like a huge thing that they did? ISIS and the Nazis were both the destroyers, and obviously ISIS in real time were the destroyers destroyers of art.
Yeah.
So the irony, the cognitive dissonance is just driving me absolutely insane. And I think, again, the majority of people in the middle of this country are just scratching their heads and be like, how did the inmates start running the asylum?
I think everyone is just yelling at each other. Everyone is yelling at each other as much as they possibly can when they don't agree with each other. And you see this now you're seeing this on a macro scale. You're seeing this in a real life scale. But what the Shakespeare protest, that's like Twitter popping into real life.
Yeah.
Like that's Twitter just kind of edging itself into reality. Like Twitter has become this sentient being that is now leaving the internet and is now a part of our everyday lives. That same sort of like discourse of yelling at each other and not listening to the other side at all. I mean, I see this on my own Twitter, when someone disagrees with me on something, I like to have an actual conversation with them to see, what they're actually saying. And then I get people that are just attacking that person, calling them
even
an
on
idiot.
your behalf. It's still just like, calm down.
It's like
It's
attacking
fine.
people and calling them an idiot and like you're fucking wrong and all of that, not introducing any discourse whatsoever. They're just attacking them. I'm like, guys, I'm trying to have a fucking conversation here, but it's like there's people screaming in your ears, and it derails the whole thing. And that's what we have is like we just have people screaming at each other and not wanting to listen, and not wanting to hear the other side at all.
The trolls have come to real life. It's like the movie The Ring when the girl crawls through the TV, but now they're crawling through your iPhone and they're appearing on a stage right in front of your eyes.
Yay!
Calling you goibles. It is an absolutely fascinating phenomenon. And, both sides are just so hypersensitive because there is no bondant in the middle. We've talked about this at length on the show. There is no collective tissue any longer with, there is no town hall where people have to tangibly go. There is no, we have farmers markets and things like that, but there's no connective, unifying America. There's no theme that people are buying into. And that is one of the issues with having a huge nation of 50 massive states, most of them larger than countries that make up the United Nations or that make up the European Union. Not having a national language. This has always sort of been one of the difficult things with the notion of America. And I'm not saying that we should have a national language or put that into the Constitution or anything like that. This is just the struggle of this country to keep unified under one flag, under one principled notion. But the one thing that we all have to have is freedom of speech, and that is the thing that is becoming eroded. And that's very dangerous. Thankfully, the courts have decided time and time again that the First Amendment applies to speech that you don't like. It applies to hate speech. There was just a recent case where the Supreme Court voted 8-0 in favor of, I believe the last name of the man suing was Tam. This was known as the Slants case. The Slants is an Asian American rock band. They wanted to copyright the name The Slants, and they were refused because it was deemed slanderous and I suppose perhaps racist. So they went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said no. They can trademark that word. It doesn't matter if you are offended by the term or not. It's First Amendment protected speech, and that was a huge win for the First Amendment this week, coming from the Supreme Court after seeing all of the people trying to shut down free speech because they were saying something negative about a political figure that they like. And the thing that we have to remember in this country is that art is the thing that allows the steam out. It's the thing that lets the pressure out. So then we don't have an Arab Spring. Then we don't have massive amounts of political violence. Unfortunately, we saw it last week. Art is the great pacifier for society. We don't actually behead our leaders when we don't like them. No, Kathy Griffin had a mock-up It was an artistic photo shoot. That's how we do it in this country. We don't drag our leaders through the street like they're Muammar Gaddafi. We don't behead people in town squares because we disagree with their policies. We do it theatrically, and then we go to the polls and we vote. That's how it works in this country, and that's why we cannot start attacking art, because once you attack art, you think it's bad when they fake behead the president. Well, get ready for some real action, because that's what happens when you stop and don't allow people to, quite frankly, just get it off their chest. You know, that's the whole point of art. It's been the point of art forever, is to satisfy the constituents and the society's unrest with people in power. That's what art does. That's what Charlie Chaplin did with the dictator. You know, that's what's been going on for generations, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Art has been important. I mean, even, go back way I don't want to use the word primitive, but just old school. We'll call them old school cultures.
Sure.
They would constantly do theatrical things, mocking the leader of their tribes and things like that. It's nothing new. No. It has to happen, and if it doesn't happen, then there's actually going to be real war. We should feel great to live in a country where the political aggression is taken out on the stage as opposed to actually, in real life. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing with like professional wrestling, where it's nice that we don't watch actual gladiators fight each other to the death. We watch it in a nice theatrical way. And I gotta say that the Money in the Bank match, the last match, Sami Zayn is incredible. Don't look at me like that, Marcus. Marcus, again, did not come over for Money in the Bank, but I did not ask him anymore, Marcus, because I'm done asking.
Well, one of these days, when Mick Foley comes back, then I'll come on over.
He can't even. We don't want Mick to come back. He's gonna die. Mick Foley is like the wrestler. Mickey Rourke's the wrestler, which I made my girlfriend watch, by the way. She didn't get it.
Really?
She thought it was sad. And I'm like, it's not sad. He's gonna.
It's sad, man.
Can I spoil the end of the wrestler?
Yeah, it's super sad.
He ram jammed. I don't want to ruin the wrestler, but how long's it been out?
I don't know, probably 8-9 years.
Okay, well then I can say it. He dies doing what he loves. He dies doing a ram jam.
Yeah, I know.
And then my girlfriend was like, "That's so sad. He's got a daughter. He's all alone." But what?
Yeah, it's sad.
He jumped off the top rope.
He chose the ram jam over his daughter.
The ram jam. I don't think you're understanding what the crowd was. The crowd was like, ram jam, ram jam, and then he was like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah, he just sacrificed his relationship with his daughter to satisfy the yellings of a few dumpy shitheads.
Oh, don't ram jam. I love what he did. But again, other than that situation with the wrestler, for the most part, our pro wrestlers don't die after a match.
Yeah, for the most part, and I definitely agree that we do need catharsis here in America.
We do.
I mean, that's one of the things that America is great at. It's not just catharsis for us. Like, that shit reverberates around the entire world. I mean, art is America's number one export. Right?
Absolutely,
culture. Culture is America's number one export. It's been that way for a long time now, and I think we cannot stifle that. Like, we can't stifle America's ability to be a cultural juggernaut, even if some of that culture that it exports is bad. Like Kathy Griffin, that is not good art. Like that's not. Like I don't think it is.
I'm not sure what it really was, but I mean, it was just,
it's not particularly clever. It's just meant to provoke, and I don't believe it really says anything in particular, but for some people that was cathartic, that sort of thing. That's not actually violent. That's just a representation of violence, violent video games, violent movies, those sort of horror movies, that type of shit's cathartic.
Oh, absolutely.
It gets it out, I mean, sure, some people might get a bit of a boner playing GTA, but for the most part, I think a lot of people, it gets out the aggression that we have built up inside of us.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. We really cannot start going down that road of attacking art. So, big Supreme Court decision this week, protecting the First Amendment. Let's shift gears a little bit. I do want to talk. There was a good article in Reason, and of course, Reason, that's Nick Gillespie and Matt Walsh and those guys, and I have respect for what they do. This is, again, talking about the NRA. I want to switch a little bit to Philando Castile, because this is an area in America where where there is legitimate anger.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting that this officer, again, Geronimo Yanez, he found not guilty. People cannot wrap their heads around, or will refuse to wrap their heads around, or refuse to acknowledge the idea that some police officers make horrible decisions, and some police officers are corrupt, and some police officers are not good at their jobs. And when cops aren't good at their jobs, people die. And people cannot, sort of capture that as a thought, because I think it would erode their entire worldview. It would put into question many other things. The exact same situation I see with the police, you see in The Keepers, for example, that unbelievably sad Netflix documentary with the Catholic Church. You can't believe, if one priest is a pedophile, where does it stop?
Yeah.
If one cop is a murderer, where does it end? They cannot understand, or refuse to understand, that society, if the cops are bad, is the mayor bad? Is the governor bad? Is the president bad? Is our congressman bad? It is too much of a Jenga. The cops hold such a key Jenga position in the structure of our society. You pull that piece of Jenga, the entire thing falls down in the minds of many Americans. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to get an actual guilty verdict in these cop cases. The case in South Carolina, where the man was running away from the officer. We're all looking at the same video, and somehow jurors, I believe that was a hung jury. I might not be right about that. I know he wasn't found guilty. We all look at the same video. We looked at the Philando Castile tape, the Facebook Live video, and then the dash cam video. And you can't wrap your head around how someone couldn't convict Geronimo for murder unless you take into account how fragile this society is and how sensitive people are when it comes to acknowledging corruption in the police force, because that would destabilize their entire existence.
I think it comes down to a feeling of betrayal. And I think it's betrayal on two different levels. I think if people realize that some cops are shitty at their jobs, they make mistakes, then it feels like that the system has betrayed them, because I think people are conditioned to think that the cops are here to protect you, that all cops are good, that they are here as a stabilizing force. So if the cop fucks up, then that feels like a betrayal. But I think it also, people feel like that if they don't have the utmost faith in the cops or the military or the government, they feel like that they're betraying them. They feel like they're betraying the cops. They feel like, because cops do a lot of good for people. And I think, if someone has had a positive experience with cops in the past, if they admit that some of those police officers are terrible at their jobs and could possibly harbor racist feelings, then I think people feel like that they're betraying the people who may have once saved them.
It's one of those things, no matter how much you hate the cops, when your home is broken into, who are you going to call? So there is no denying that there are officers that do some amazing things. But we just can't paint everyone with such a broad brush, because for a fact there are countless police officers who are livid with Geronimo Yanez. Yeah. I mean, they see this as a total, like you were just saying, betrayal to them.
Yeah.
The people in the men in blue or the women in blue, the good ones on the force are also dealing with the ramifications of these rogue actors' actions, because they're the ones now going into places with much more hostile intent against them, because they're all cops. So when you start painting a broad brush, it would do amazing if Geronimo was found guilty, because then we could have closure on this situation, and a cop driving through that part of Minneapolis wouldn't feel the wrath of what the legal system was supposed to take care of. Now those officers driving through those communities are feeling the wrath of what the legal system failed to do.
Well, it's not just wrath, it's also trust.
Total lack of trust.
I mean, it's a lack of trust, because if people in these communities don't trust the cops, then the cops aren't going to be able to do their jobs. And if the cops can't do their jobs, then the more crime will spread. And that's just not in those communities. That's everywhere. That's all around the United States. The more that the trust of police officers gets eroded, the worse crime is going to get.
Yep. I just want to read this one part from this recent article because it's about the NRA. And again, the NRA had a great opportunity here to step up to the plate and not be seen as solely a white institution. Of course, they have huge inroads with the Police Benevolence Association. The cops in the NRA are quite close. But again, in a situation like this, you would think the actions were so extreme, both sides could see things clearly, but they did not. This is from the article. A day after the shooting, the NRA said the reports from Minnesota are troubling and must be thoroughly investigated. It promised the NRA will have more to say once all the facts are known. The reports have been investigated and the facts are known, yet the NRA has added nothing to the bland, non-committal statement it made a year ago. You'd think the nation's largest and oldest civil rights organization, that's what they call themselves, would have more to say about an innocent man who was killed for exercising his Second Amendment rights. And I got to completely agree with that article. He did everything right, and the NRA had an opportunity to really step up to the plate here, and they completely blew it once again, making themselves out to be a harbinger of this notion that we live in a nation where different constitutional rights are applied to different people based upon race, economic class, and education.
They had a meeting to talk about whether they would make a formal statement about this, whether they would come out for it or come out against it, and they came out of that meeting deciding they would say nothing.
Say nothing.
They made a decision. Yeah, right. You can't tell me that the NRA did not have a meeting about this.
Of course.
They came out of it saying that they would not make a statement. They would not weigh in on this. They are just staying silent and hoping that no one notices.
Yep.
Just hoping that no one notices that they will not. And this isn't the first time that the NRA has not come out for a black gun owner.
Sure.
There was that woman in Minnesota that got 23 years.
The woman in Florida,
that's
who
right.
she fired a warning shot because her ex-abusive, I believe it was husband, perhaps ex-boyfriend, was banging on the door. She shot a warning shot. She shot a warning shot. She got 23 years, I believe it was.
And the NRA was silent.
Completely silent. You also have to wonder if, with the racial components of this situation, we hear so much about a white officer shooting a black man. Geronimo Yanez, obviously not a white dude. More evidence that it's systemic. This is not a racial situation. This is a systemic problem within our police force. And you do wonder what the social media reactions would have said had it been a white officer with Philando Castile who shot Philando Castile. It would have been, it would have been so much more salacious. And because that's what leads in this country is continuing this notion of racial division, as we saw transitioning a little bit here to North Korea when it comes to Otto Warmbier, when he was arrested in North Korea for doing something fairly petty, although extremely important to the North Korean regime, tampering with official government a poster. And I guess he didn't fully understand what the Kim dynasty means to people of North Korea. You don't mess with a poster at all. So he got 15 years hard labor. There was countless articles written about how he took his white privilege to a foreign country and he realized it's not valid there. All this kind of hyperbolic nonsense, as opposed to, of course, Kenneth Bae was also an Asian American held in North Korea. People want to infuse race on so many things, just again to get the clicks and those kinds of things. And they see the world through a racial lens, which is just as it can be just as pollutant as seeing the world through a political lens. Anytime you got to try to be clear and see people as human beings first. As opposed to just, based on, sort of the superficial things. So what happened with Otto Warmbier, a very interesting situation. God knows what the North Koreans did to him. They didn't find any. They didn't find any broken bones on him. They didn't find any neurological toxins. They didn't find any botulism, which would sort of make it seem as if he was poisoned. He just had a massive situation that led to his brain not receiving oxygen, not receiving blood. He came over here in a coma, and now he has passed away. And now we have a situation where this has global warfare. This has global implications when it comes to what we're going to be doing with North Korea. The United States buzzed two, I believe there were supersonic planes around North Korea, sort of send a message. And now we have the situation with Vladimir Putin with a NATO plane buzzing a Russian plane. Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin promising that they could see U.S. aircraft. They would blow up U.S. aircraft. So there is so much going on internationally, and we sit here back home and we talk about Shakespeare in the Park and these kinds of things, but globally the world is in a massive amount of flux because, again, Donald Trump's America First policies have led to some power vacuums, specifically when it comes to NATO and things like that, giving more control to other NATO nations, as opposed to the United States taking the lead. So this whole thing is there's no reason to be worried, but it is a fascinating series of events. And the worst thing that we can do in the West is continue to be militarily aggressive against the North Koreans, because as I talked about this week on Kennedy, that show on Fox Business, they are a cult in their waning days, and all U.S. aggression does is prove Kim Jong-un's narrative that the West is trying to oppress them and the West wants to eradicate them, so we better eradicate the West first. Mm-hmm. It's very dangerous what's happening. So we have all of the other things happening in this country, and then you got to blow it out a little bit more macro, and it's a fascinating we have a fascinating theater happening specifically in Syria and what's going on with the North Koreans. If we go into a North Korea and invade, that would lead to the worst humanitarian crisis. It would make Syria look, absolutely fine. And the Chinese don't want it. The South Koreans don't want it. And those North Koreans, they're not losing. And when I say that, I mean they will die. We would have to kill every single one of them. The war would never end. Yeah, it would be a quagmire to say the least. So we have a lot of real life stuff happening, despite people shouting down individuals trying to perform art in the park here in New York City. So it's an interesting world, and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot to stay focused on. Of course, we also had the Alex Jones Megyn Kelly interview, which Alex Jones, the Megyn Kelly, that the show itself, it lost to a rerun of America's Funniest Home Videos, and I gotta say, America's Funniest Home Videos is hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
Even the second time, because it's like still baseballs hitting crotches.
Yeah.
And then like a dog on skates, which is always fun to watch a dog on skates. I love a dog on skates.
I love a bulldog on a skateboard.
Oh my God. Maybe dogs on a balloon, dogs playing with balloons. Was there ever an America's Funniest animals?
I think they had specials.
Okay, good. Well, there better be. So anyway, Megyn Kelly was the big loser there. It was a 17-minute interview, and the InfoWars, they did a Mystery Science Theater 3000 version of it. I believe they actually had more clicks on the InfoWars version of the interview than the actual interview, and it really, I think, just led to mainstreaming Alex Jones even more, because the people that don't like him, the best outcome is they continue not to like him. The worst outcome is they're like, oh, he kind of has a point.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he gets more attention. When I think that was sort of the net win for Alex Jones, because if you like Alex Jones, you're not going to not like Alex Jones because Megyn Kelly grilled him on some mainstream media television show.
Yeah, and I watched the whole commentary of the InfoWars crew. Chernovich was on that.
Yes, he was.
And your buddy Roger Stone called in.
The old Stone Zone.
The Stone Zone. And it's so funny to hear Alex Jones talk to him on the phone, because he's a consummate radio professional. He says every time he referred to Roger Stone, he said Roger Stone every time. We got Roger Stone on the phone now. What do you think about that, Roger Stone? Just kept saying it over and over again. But they were loving it. They were having a fantastic time. It was obvious that they knew that they won. That Megyn Kelly did not get her. She did not achieve her purpose, although I'm not even entirely sure what her purpose was.
I don't know either. I mean, she wants the ratings. She's desperate for them, but I don't think that these big media brands and big media brand personalities fully understand what they're going against when they go against Alex Jones. He is the boogeyman from Nightmare Before Christmas.
The Oogie Boogie Man?
Oogie Boogie. He is his minions.
Looks like the Oogie Boogie Man.
Kind of does. They are all inside of him. I mean, he is like Freddy Krueger who harnesses the souls of his followers. He is more powerful than Megyn Kelly because Megyn Kelly, at the end of the day, she might have some followers on Twitter. Maybe people like her, watch her show. She doesn't understand the rabid fan base that Alex Jones has.
No one cares about Megyn Kelly.
They don't care. At the end of the day, they're not going to go to bat for Megyn Kelly. But Alex Jones's fans, they go to bat for him every single day. As a matter of fact, they treat it like a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I don't think Megyn Kelly just doesn't understand the media world that Alex Jones runs in because he is a brand. She's going up against a full-on brand, and she has the only brand that she has is mainstream media, NBC. Right. That's her brand. Alex Jones's brand is InfoWars himself, his brain. Right. And it's very easy when you've got this narrative of Alex Jones versus the mainstream media. Mm-hmm. He's got his brand versus Megyn Kelly's brand. Megyn Kelly's brand is a TV network that no one really likes. No one's going to be getting behind NBC as their hero.
Because NBC doesn't care about you. I mean, at the same time, it's like, I understand. Alex Jones and InfoWars, they have a much more direct-to-consumer product. It doesn't go through a huge amount of marketing and advertisers and these billion dollar corporations.
Nobody has an NBC News sticker on their car.
No one. But I would hate to see the person that does, actually. Absolutely.
But even here in New York City, I've seen dozens of InfoWars stickers.
Oh, of course.
You know, like she had no idea what she was going up against, or she didn't care what she was going up against, or she just had hubris and she thought that Megyn Kelly, can slay this goblin. And that goblin just took a big old dump. On her dinner table.
That's the worst place to do it. I don't like that at all.
Took a dump on her dinner table and ran away laughing.
Well, not to get Alex Jonesy and myself, but you do wonder now, again, going back to what we're seeing across the world, the military wins. The Hawks in Washington always win. Mm-hmm. And, it seems like we're gearing up for something. I'm not sure what that means, but it does seem like something will be happening militarily overseas in the near future. And again, if the election, going back to Georgia 6th, the election of Karen Handel, the fact that, again, Republicans have filled all 4 seats that were vacated from individuals who went to work with the Trump administration. The Republicans have the health care bill coming out next week. We'll see what it is, and hopefully they have a little bit of time to actually look it over. Good Lord, we don't need another repeat of what happened in 2008, or maybe it was early 2009 when they actually got to pass the thing. Nancy Pelosi, of course, famously saying, we'll see what's in it after we pass it. If the Republican Party begins to sort of solidify and realize they can survive with a Trump administration, that's going to give them a lot more ground for military interaction overseas. And then you have yourself the election cycle in 2020 coming up already. It's Abraham Lincoln coined it, running for re-election. Don't change horses in midstream. We saw George W. Bush sort of harness that notion perfectly in 2004. Military action does not hurt when a politician is attempting to get reelected, specifically at the presidential election. House of Cards also touches on it at the end of season 4. Season 5 I just finished, by the way. It's amazing. So something's going on. The military in this country always wins. And you do wonder if we're going to have a bit more of an military intervention, either with North Korea or continue what's happening in Syria. I believe there's already been suggestions of boots on the ground and things like that. So we'll see. And it can only happen if the Republican Party feels solidified and comfortable with Donald Trump as president. And, as frogs slowly heat up in the pressure cooker, this is becoming normal. Mm-hmm. The Trump presidency has become normal, and it just is what it is. We see children on a regular basis, and that's kind of the scary thing. Kids talking. There was a report from Karen Handel's, from her victory speech, before people are waiting. There was a couple of kids wearing Make America Great Again hats, and they said, this party is low energy, and they started clapping really loud and stuff like that.
Because low energy is a meme.
Exactly, and it's a code, but, for the younger generations, Donald Trump is normal. They didn't have. And honestly, we started with George W. Bush. That was normal. Bill Clinton it was normal for a president to be getting blowjobs in the Oval Office, and corruption is all over the place. I mean, these things just become society, and they don't become strange. And that's why every old person is constantly confused with new generations, and they call them stupid, and they're probably right. Like maybe every old person sitting on a stoop screaming at the youth are probably onto something.
I never thought of it that way.
Maybe, they had actual, intelligence, or what they perceive to be intelligence in their generation. So the fact that we live in the fact that we will have kids who will never experience, or maybe not in their, intellectual yet, enough yet to experience what a president was maybe with Obama or whatever it might be. Trump is just going to be a normal U.S. president.
Yeah.
And then it's extremely interesting, to say the least. Interesting times. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. Everything's fine. Go to the park, watch some Shakespeare, and it'll be all good. We also got a bunch of magnets. Who sent us those magnets? A great fan.
I don't know, but I just got them stuck to the desk. That's good. That's what that sound was.
I was telling Marcus about what was the name of that thing I was telling you about?
Buckyballs?
Buckyballs. Yeah, there was a magnet company back in the day. It was called Buckyballs. They got sued because kids kept on eating the magnets, and the magnets would come together in their stomachs. And I think a lot of people died, which is not good. Again, Bree, thank you so much for the shirt.
Yes, thank you for all the paraphernalia.
Yep, and let us know what you think about the show. You can find me on Twitter at Ben Kissel. You can find Marcus Parks at Marcus Parks. Marcus Parks is Marcus Parks on Instagram as well. I'm Ben Kissel 1 on Instagram. And let's see here. I think that's basically it.
I think so.
For this show, for the news of the week. But again, you can email me at benk721@gmail.com. I'm going to be doing a dumpster fire chat real soon. I got some great emails lined up. I apologize. I've just been real busy here. But all right, everyone, thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk
to you soon.
For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to cavecomedyradio.com.